Benjamin Dixon, host of the Benjamin Dixon Show. I'm now joined by Tim Ward. He's an author, publisher, teacher, and a traveler. He co-authored the book Pro-Truth, a practical guide, a practical plan for putting truth back into politics. Tim, this is a very precarious time that we're living in. Thanks so much for joining me.
So true, right? Never before, in a sense, has truth been on the ballot box. This election is going to be as much a referendum on what matters to Americans. What do they see as their values? And how do they want the world to see them in terms of not just the issues, but also does truth matter?
Does truth matter? And I mean, not to wax, like an armchair philosopher, but does truth even exist in this post-truth America? Let's start with your work for protruthpledge.org. Tell us about that, and then we'll move into this election and the truth being on the ballot.
So this is a movement, the Pro-Truth Pledge, that anybody can sign on to, which is a voluntary commitment to practice truthful behaviors when it comes to politics, and particularly around social media. Over 11,000 people have signed it so far, but most importantly, over 1,000 elected officials from a whole spectrum of political parties have signed it as well. Anyone who signs that pledge and then violates it, lies, spreads misinformation, who's a public figure, that can be brought to our attention, it'll be adjudicated, and they'll be asked to retract it. If they don't, then we put that on our website. So it's one way that citizens can begin to enforce truthful behavior as something that we value. And we need to send that signal to political leaders that people value truth.
So I want to go two directions with this. First, tell us a little bit about the substance of the pledge itself. I recall actually my team signing it and insist. We discussed this right back in 2016. So you've been working on this for a little while.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The pledge came out of the campaign for the previous presidential election, where we first moved into this conversation about post-truth and alternative facts, people seeing that the facts could be shunted aside and people could be told things that aligned with their values, with what they wanted to be true, as opposed to what was actually true in some cases. The pledge itself is focused on truthful behaviors concerning how you spread information online, and really how anybody shares information, particularly with relevance to politics. So the first one is to verify truth. That simply means don't share stuff on social media unless you have checked it, or you've read it from a reliable source, and even then you would occasionally fact check. This prevents so much misinformation from going out there, and I know everybody has the experience. You read something, you go, oh my gosh, maybe it strikes you as horrible, maybe it strikes you as and you just send it out. But what we forget is the misinformation factories that are out there are paying people to create fake news that perfectly fits what you want to be true, that perfectly fits the kinds of divisive stories that people look for because they know they'll repost them. So we want to be, I think of it like this sometimes, that this information is like a fishing lure, well crafted so that a fish will bite it, and we are the fish. We see something that seems juicy, we want to just clomp on it, believe it, and pass it on. We need to get smarter. We need to be smarter than those who are trying to misinform us. And the first step is to fact check, right? So fact check.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but it seems like that's would be common knowledge, right? That people would go through that basic step of journalism, or if you're a public figure, of just checking out your sources. My question that I really want to hear you speak on is, where do you think that turn and that pivot came to where we went headlong into embracing misinformation and fake news because of the confirmation bias?
Right. So the confirmation bias is our willingness to believe information that matches what we already think and feel, and our tendency to ignore information that doesn't match what we already think and feel. And basically, you're talking about the algorithms of social media that see where we spend our time, that's notice what we like. We're basically feeding our confirmation bias into social media algorithms that give us more of that, and also make our data more available for those who want to deceive us by telling us what they think we'll readily believe. Right. So now here's what I noticed when I signed the pledge. I noticed that there were times that I was about to just forward something on and they'd say, oh, yeah, but I can't do that because I signed the pledge. So I fact check it. Sometimes I discover it was wrong. Now, the second thing when you sign the pledge is you let other people know about it. And if they correct you, you have to thank them for it and retract, unpost, withdraw stuff. I've done that myself with friends of mine who have very different political views and said, hey, I thought you signed this pledge. And I'll be like, I didn't check that thoroughly enough. So I do it. I thank them. That makes me humble. And then I take it down and that makes my network a little less deceptive.
Here's my question for you in general, but also specific to the pledge and the implementation of people who may violate the pledge. Who's the final arbiter of truth in that process?
Well, I mean, frankly, 95% of the time, it's not that hard, right? Things either happened or they didn't happen, right? Figures are either quoted accurately or misquoted. That 5%, we actually do have an adjudication board. If there's something that's brought to us, we'll take a look at it. And if the person seems to have violated and spread misinformation, we'll tell them. If they don't take it down, we'll then censure them on our website. This is incentive for politicians both to sign it, but then to live up to the pledge. And I'm happy to say over 1,000 elected officials have signed the pledge so far, including 7 members of Congress from both parties. So it's beginning to get some traction.
What is that balance like in terms of people willingness? Is there is it a bipartisan split there, or is there an imbalance in who was willing to sign and who's not in terms of political party?
Most people have not yet been asked, who are representatives, please sign the pledge. That's one of the things our campaign volunteers are doing. What we've seen now in that there's lots of folks in both parties. I don't have a count for you. I know in those congressional representatives, of the 7 who signed, only 1 is a Republican. The first Republican just signed last week, obviously feeling some pressure from this campaign. That's what we want. We want people to see it's in their advantage to commit to being honest politicians.
What do you think of the idea that holding ourselves to a standard that perhaps our opposition won't hold? If we're holding ourselves to the standard of truth and the opposition is not, do you think that puts us at a disadvantage?
You know, I think politicians will struggle with that, but ultimately your credibility, that's what people are gonna vote for. You know, you may have seen this hashtag out there, personality or policies over personalities, by people who want to vote for Trump, but they don't like his personality, but they think they like his tax policies. Well, that's ruse. You know, far better is a hashtag a friend of mine just created, character over corruption, right? If you are not voting for somebody with a good character who can recognize and speak the truth to you, then sooner or later, they're going to be incompetent and cover it up, be corrupt and lie about it. And
go ahead.
And possibly try to steal an election.
You're going right into where I was headed anyway. What do you think this election says about truth?
I think truth is on the ballot. I've been listening to the debates. I've been listening to both candidates speaking, and President Trump has gone out and he said things that are flagrant lies about Joe Biden, lies about Biden that are so bad that Vladimir Putin has actually said no. I don't think that that Biden did anything wrong in Ukraine. You know, things are bad when Vladimir Putin is the one who will even say, I can't agree with that, with that lie. So, you know, but it's not just for us, it's for how the world is going to see us. Will we re-elect somebody who's a chronic and well-established liar? How can anybody trust a treaty being signed with the United States, with intelligence that the United States is sharing with them, if at the very top, there's someone who will lie and feels they have impunity?
If Donald Trump, and we only have a few seconds here, but if Donald Trump is removed, do you think that there's a path back for the Republican Party to try to become more fact-based and truth-based?
You know, I sure hope so. You know, core Republican values are, you know, are about following a strong moral code. They're about honor, right? They're about being true to your beliefs, and many of them Christian or other religious beliefs. And you know, one thing that I will take from that I will say from the Bible is, if the truth will set you free, which is what Jesus said, then lies will bind you in chains. We should keep that in mind in this election season.
That's a very powerful statement and sentiment. Tim, thank you so much for all of your work that you're doing with the Pro-Truth Pledge. Tell us where people can find that information.
The protruthpledge.org is the website, and there you can find our fabulous new book, which teaches you how to protect yourself against lies and how to help others find their way to valuing the truth in politics. Anywhere you can buy a book.
Tim Ward, author, publisher, and teacher, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.